home looking forward to a peaceful evening. However, upon entering the house, I was greeted by the sound of lively conversation between my wife and her friend in the living room. Their animated chatter filled the air, catching my attention not just because of the volume, but also the intense tone of their discussion. As the door closed behind me, the boisterous exchange abruptly turned into hushed whispers, sparking my curiosity. What topic could be so engaging that it needed to be concealed as soon as I arrived? Stepping closer, I noticed their quick exchange of glances, hinting at a sense of secrecy. I couldn't help but inquire, my voice steady but firm, "What were you two discussing?" My wife tried to brush it off with a laugh and a dismissive wave, claiming they were merely acknowledging their loudness. However, her response failed to satisfy my suspicion. "That's not a sufficient answer," I insisted, crossing my arms. I shifted my gaze between the two of them. They both appeared a little too relaxed, as if trying to downplay whatever had just occurred. My wife's friend avoided eye contact completely, engrossed in her phone. Meanwhile, my wife offered a tight smile and simply said, "I'll explain when the time is right." I found her response unsatisfying. I generally disliked vague assurances and being left in the dark, but I refrained from pressing too hard with her friend present. Arguments in front of guests seldom ended well, so I decided to let it go for the time being. However, once her friend had left, I wasn't willing to drop the issue. As soon as the door closed behind her, I turned to my wife and inquired, "What's really going on? What are you keeping from me?" This time, my tone was firmer, more insistent. With a sigh, my wife ran a hand through her hair and admitted, "It's not a bad situation. There's just an important matter that only one person can assist me with." My friend and I were discussing it, swearing I pushed for more details about the problem. She refused to share but asked for my help the next day with a mysterious task. Frustrated, I demanded answers right then and there. Despite my persistence, she remained tight-lipped, assuring me that everything would be fine. Disappointed but resigned, I decided to drop the subject for the night. As I lay in bed, my mind raced with questions about the situation and her involvement with a friend. Something just didn't add up. Being off wouldn't go away. Still, I reminded myself that I'd find out eventually. For now, I had to wait. With that thought, I finally closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep, the mystery of it all lingering in the back of my mind. The next morning, I was woken up by my wife shaking my shoulder. My eyes barely adjusted to the light when I heard her voice, sharp and hurried. "Come on, we need to go," she said. I sat up, groggy and confused. "Go where?" I mumbled. But she didn't answer. Instead, she was already moving around the room, making it clear that this was urgent, at least to her. When I finally got a good look at her, I couldn't help but frown. She was dressed up in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. A short skirt, a fitted top. It wasn't her usual choice, and it certainly wasn't something I'd expect this early in the morning. "Why are you dressed like that?" I asked, my tone flat. She stopped for a moment, glanced at me, and said, "Trust me, it's important." That wasn't an answer, but she didn't give me a chance to reply. She handed me a piece of paper with an address scribed on it. I started the engine and drove, still trying to make sense of what was going on. The drive wasn't long, but my patience was wearing thin. When we arrived, I couldn't hide my surprise. It was a fancy restaurant, the kind of place we only went to on special occasions. "What's this?" I asked. But before I could get a straight answer, she was already walking toward the entrance. She didn't go in alone. Her friend from the night before was with her, just as dressed up. The two of them disappeared inside, leaving me standing there with more questions than ever. I wasn't about to let it go, though. Something about the whole situation felt off. So I parked the car and followed them in, keeping a low profile. I found a seat by the window and ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a drink just enough to keep the wait staff from asking questions. From my spot, I had a clear view of their tab. "Is there anything else I can assist you with?" Bill, my wife, and her friend were sitting with two men in suits. One of the men held her friend's hand, while the other seemed to be in deep conversation with my wife. The atmosphere was serious at first, but then they started laughing like they were old friends. I took out my phone and snapped a few photos, just in case I'd need them later. I stayed long enough to confirm that this wasn't just a casual meeting. Whatever was going on, it was planned and deliberate. When I'd seen enough, I left the restaurant and waited in the car. My mind was racing, trying to piece together what I just witnessed. None of it made sense, and I was determined to get answers. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was my wife asking me to pick her up. I drove back to the restaurant and waited for her at the curb. When she got in the car, she looked pleased with herself, almost excited. "You're going to be shocked when I tell you everything," she said, a smile on her face. I didn't share her enthusiasm. "Yeah, you'll tell me," I said. Keep maintaining a calm demeanor. I refused to let my frustration escalate. Instead, I concentrated on driving. I was determined to uncover the truth soon enough. With that in mind, we made our way home for what I anticipated would be a crucial discussion. The moment we entered the house, I turned to her, my patience wearing thin. "Enough of this charade. What were you doing at that restaurant with those two men and your friend?" I demanded, my voice assertive and louder than usual. She gazed at me, visibly taken aback by my tone. "Were you following me?" she asked, her expression shifting from surprise to annoyance. Undeterred, I pressed on. "Following you? Have you even stopped to consider your recent behavior?" I retorted. Following a brief pause, she let out a sigh. "Fine," she relented, retrieving a folded piece of paper from her purse. "You may not like what you're about to read." Handing me the paper, she proceeded to explain that she had made a grave error at work, one significant enough to attract attention. The guy attempted to blackmail her by threatening to disclose information to her boss if she did not agree to go on a date with him, she explained calmly, though discomfort was evident in her voice. I refused to comply with his demands, unwilling to lower myself to his level, she added. Upon hearing this, my immediate reaction was to question why she hadn't informed me about the situation. "Why didn't you come to me for help?" I inquired, struggling to control my frustration. I could have handled it. A conversation with him would have likely deterred any further misconduct. She shook her head, revealing that the issue had become irrelevant as he had been terminated not long after she had left. Problem solved, she concluded. However, I expressed skepticism, stating that it did not appear to be resolved in my viewpoint. As she glanced away, deliberating her response, she explained that she needed to plan her next steps. With Christmas approaching and financial obligations to consider, waiting idly was not an option. Therefore, she sought assistance from a friend who arranged, "I have a meeting today to introduce me to some people." I asked what kind of people they were and what kind of job it was for. She seemed unsure and shrugged, mentioning that she didn't know all the details yet. Her friend had a plan of some sort and described it as a good opportunity, but she would only reveal everything when the time was right. We were supposed to visit her friend's place next weekend, which would provide more information. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the whole situation, as plans shrouded in so much secrecy typically didn't lead to positive outcomes. Despite my reservations, I decided not to pressure her further since she had made up her mind. I reluctantly agreed, insisting that it had to be worth it. She nodded, although her displeasure with my tone was evident. That evening, as we lay in bed, the unsettling feeling persisted. The vague plan, cryptic explanations, and the impending visit to a remote country house next weekend left me feeling uneasy. I couldn't ignore the nagging suspicion that something wasn't right. All I could do for the time being was wait, with that unsettling thought lingering in the back of my mind, until I finally closed my eyes as my eyes slowly drifted shut. I found myself slipping into slumber. The days leading up to the anticipated event had been rather uneventful, leaving me feeling somewhat uneasy despite the lack of action. Desperate for more information, I attempted to extract details from both my wife and her friend, only to be met with a united front. They cryptically assured me that all would be revealed in due time, delivering their words in perfect harmony as if they had rehearsed the lines. Their secrecy frustrated me to no end. They acted as if everyone else was privy to a secret that was being kept from me. When I persisted in my questioning, my wife simply offered me a comforting smile, insisting that everything was above board and that there was no cause for concern. On the day of the event, my wife spent the morning preparing herself, selecting an eye-catching ensemble that consisted of a mini-skirt paired with a sleek blouse. I opted for a more conservative look, donning a crisp shirt and a pair of dress pants. As we made our way to her friend's countryside home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The driveway was lined with luxurious cars, reminiscent of those one would expect to see at a high-profile gathering rather than a casual get-together. As we entered the room, the ambience resembled a lavish party rather than a professional setting. Her friend had put in a lot of effort with the decorations, drinks, and music. The two men from the restaurant quickly approached my wife, showering her with compliments and showing their delight in seeing her. I stayed close by, observing their overly friendly behavior. When I finally caught up with them, I couldn't resist making a comment. "You both seemed to really enjoy the dinner at the restaurant," I said, my tone slightly pointed. Their smiles faltered momentarily before one of them responded, "Absolutely. But tonight is where the true decisions about your wife's future are made." This remark piqued my interest. "And what exactly does that entail?" I inquired, not concealing my skepticism. With a smile, one of the men replied, "She will explain everything. It depends on the role she has chosen. This is a unique process, as you will soon see." His vague response left me even more curious. "Why not conduct a formal interview?" I probed further. With a shrug, he began, "Formal interviews tend to attract the incorrect crowd, those more interested in showcasing their credentials rather than their true selves. Here, however, everyone is laid back and open, making it easier to determine compatibility." Despite my inclination to argue, my wife's friend intervened, reassuring me to trust the process. Reluctantly, I stepped aside. Soon after, my wife was called away for a private discussion, and her friend insisted I remain in place, emphasizing it was all part of the procedure. Frustrated, I gritted my teeth but complied. From my vantage point, I could only make out faint voices, too indistinct to discern the conversation. When my wife rejoined us, she was positively glowing with excitement. "Guess what?" she exclaimed. "I've been offered a promotion to Senior Client Relations Manager." As she left with two men congratulating her and mentioning a forthcoming special assignment, my curiosity piqued. I wanted more details about the nature of her new role. When I asked about the assignment, she responded with a playful smile. She promised to share all the details once we were home. Despite my reservations, I agreed to enjoy the night for the time being. We socialized with various guests, but none seemed well informed about the company or its operations, which struck me as odd. The drive back was peaceful, yet my wife's evident excitement was contagious. Upon arriving home, she turned to me with a grin and cryptically stated, "Big things are coming, you'll see." Feeling frustrated, I immediately confronted her upon stepping inside. "No more secrets," I asserted firmly. "Tell me everything about this assignment, the senior manager role, and the mysterious individuals involved." "Why is everything so ambiguous?" My wife appeared taken aback by my abrupt outburst, but composed herself swiftly. "It's just how the company operates," she explained, signaling for me to take a seat. "Team about to start a new job that is very private and operates differently from typical corporate setups. I don't know much about what they do yet, but they assured me that I will learn more once I begin on Monday." My friend's explanation didn't ease my concerns. "You accepted a job without knowing the details?" I asked, trying to contain my frustration. She replied, "They have been transparent about their confidential work practices. It's their policy." She continued, "I didn't have many options after losing my last job." Shifting the conversation, I inquired about the pay. I needed to know if the financial aspect made up for the uncertainty. Her expression brightened as she replied, "The pay is really good. We'll be able to cover everything for Christmas and still have money left over. It's a significant increase from my previous earnings." Shaving received some consolation. Although my doubts were not completely erased, I expressed my feelings. "All right," I said firmly, "but I expect you to update me as soon as you have any information." "What's really going on?" "No more of this when the time is right nonsense." She nodded, although it was clear she was not entirely pleased with my tone. "Of course," she replied, attempting to reassure me. Curious, I inquired about her early start the following day, considering she wasn't officially beginning work until Monday. She explained that she had to meet someone from the company for an orientation and to discuss initial details. Additionally, she mentioned the longer commute required her to leave early. Sitting back in my chair, I expressed my displeasure at the secrecy surrounding her new job. I want you to know that if anything seems suspicious, I won't hesitate to intervene and pull you out of it. Understood? She gave a faint smile and confirmed her understanding. But trust me, she added reassuringly, everything will be fine. With that settled, we headed off to bed. While she quickly drifted off to sleep, I lay awake, contemplating her words about secrecy and special task, a mysterious recruitment process. The intricate procedures seemed far from innocent, despite her assurances. At the moment, there was nothing I could alter about it. As I drifted into slumber, I pondered what the coming days might hold. Upon waking, I noticed an empty bed, which was not entirely unusual. However, it was the note left on the nightstand that caught my eye. Breakfast is ready on the stove. The note appeared hastily written, which seemed out of character for her. While having breakfast, I couldn't shake the feeling of something amiss lingering in the air. The sense of urgency pervading the house was palpable. Intrigued, I decided to investigate the bedroom closet. What I found there was troubling. Clothing was disheveled as if someone had rifled through it hurriedly. Moreover, there was a notable absence of a dress I deemed too intimate for everyday wear, as well as a set of lace that caught my attention. I had never seen her wear lingerie outside the house before, so it caught me off guard. I immediately called her, but the background noise made it difficult to hear clearly. Voices, laughter, and music filled the line. "What's going on? What are you wearing?" I asked, trying to stay calm. She replied with a sigh, "I can't talk right now. There's a serious problem I'm dealing with. I'll explain everything later." Before I could say more, she hung up, leaving me frustrated and anxious. I paced around the house and discussed the situation with my friends through chat, but their theories only heightened my worries. As my mind raced with worst-case scenarios, she eventually came home looking tired yet composed. Relieved, she said, "You won't believe the day I've had," dropping her bag by the door. I didn't interrupt her, eagerly waiting to hear the explanation. "Please remove your coat," I stated straightforwardly. Perplexed, she questioned what? Why? I replied firmly, "Just do it." With hesitation, she complied. Disappointed not to see the lingerie or dress, I crossed my arms. "Where are they?" "The dress and lace set." "Did you wear them to work?" Her confusion morphed into annoyance. "Are you being serious right now?" "They're in the laundry. I tried them on, but they needed washing." "Your recent paranoia is exhausting." Though her words hurt, there was truth in them. Ever since her secretive job began, I had been on edge. "Fine," I relented, "but share what happened today." Taking a seat, she revealed, "I was tasked with organizing a significant event. It's highly confidential. However, they are planning a surprise for me during the upcoming holiday party." Intrigued, I inquired skeptically, "What sort of surprise?" She shrugged. "I'm not sure, but it's at my friend's countryside home. We're both going, so you'll see it for yourself." Despite her evident excitement, I remained unconvinced. Something still felt amiss about the situation. The remainder of the evening passed without incident. She appeared genuinely thrilled about the upcoming event, and I chose not to probe further. However, as I lay in bed later that night, I couldn't shake the nagging thought of what kind of surprise necessitated such secrecy. The day concluded, leaving me with more uncertainties than solutions, prompting me to ponder the true nature of the situation. That night, she burst in through the door, visibly flustered and rushed. "We have to leave right now," she exclaimed, giving me little time to process the sudden urgency. Due to a delay at work, we were already running late. Perplexed but unwilling to argue, I hastily threw on my coat and followed her to the car. As I drove, she directed me to her friend's rural home. The urgency in her tone prevented me from asking too many questions. Upon our arrival, the house was aglow with lights reminiscent of a carnival. Music flooded out onto the driveway, and as we entered, a whirlwind of excitement. Confetti and balloons filled the room, creating a festive and almost extravagant atmosphere. Laughter, conversation, and the clinking of champagne glasses filled the air, indicating that this gathering was more than just an ordinary party. As we navigated through the crowd, I couldn't help but notice the many people who congratulated my wife, some even raising their glasses in toast to her. It was evident that everyone present was aware of her new job and genuinely thrilled for her success. Despite my initial doubts, witnessing her being celebrated brought upon a sense of pride within me. Suddenly, a man from the restaurant who had been present during my wife's job interview stood on a table with a raised glass, silencing the room. "All right, everyone," he announced loudly, cutting through the chatter. "Now that we've enjoyed ourselves, it's time for the main event, the celebration party." My heart skipped a beat as I froze, questioning if I had heard incorrectly. The room erupted in excitement, and to my astonishment, people began removing their clothes. Chaos ensued without hesitation. I took my wife's hand firmly and guided her toward the door, ignoring her protests as she tried to resist. Despite her objections, I was resolute in leaving the situation behind. As we made our way to the car, her phone was already inundated with calls and messages, questioning our whereabouts and if we were returning. She responded to one of them, informing them that I wasn't feeling well and that we had to depart. Although her demeanor remained composed, there was a hint of frustration in her eyes. Upon arriving home, I wasted no time in addressing the situation. I confronted her, questioning her involvement in the matter. I raised my voice, expressing my disapproval of her participation. She sighed, displaying her annoyance, and explained that we had the option to not take part. I shook my head, adamant that regardless of the circumstances, I didn't want her to return there. She defiantly crossed her arms and insisted that she wouldn't quit, emphasizing her commitment to her job and determination to continue despite the events of that evening. Following a few peaceful days, I decided it was time to seek clarity. "What's the status on your assignment?" I inquired one evening as she sat on the couch with her laptop open. Pausing to meet my gaze, she replied, "I'm still in the process of working on it. It's a significant project that requires careful planning. I'll provide you with all the details once it's finalized." Her response failed to alleviate my concerns. Leaning against the kitchen counter, I expressed, "You've been acting differently lately, and after the incident at the party, I'm finding it challenging to trust the current situation." With a sigh of frustration, she responded, "That party was an isolated incident. There are always some troublemakers, but it doesn't reflect the entire project. Can we please move on from that topic?" Sensing her reluctance to elaborate, I chose not to push further, although her words did little to instill confidence within me. As the days passed, her workload intensified, causing her to return home later each night, citing work obligations. "We're exploring some incredible ideas," she shared during one of those late nights. "The team is really solidifying and feeling confident, setting the stage for success." However, I became unsettled by her late nights, noticing how fatigued she appeared each time she entered. Upon expressing my concern, she dismissed it, attributing it to the demands of the job. She stated that this opportunity could make or break her career and she needed to go all in. Despite her determination, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right about the job. Her explanations were vague, and the secrecy surrounding her assignment only added to my unease. Despite my reservations, I chose to keep them to myself to avoid another argument. Then one evening, she returned home looking more rejuvenated than she had in days and exclaiming that the next day was the big day. She eagerly talked about the culmination of their efforts and how excited she was to witness it all come together. Although her excitement was infectious, I still didn't fully grasp the details of what she was referring to tomorrow. The highly anticipated opening was on my mind, and I was determined to get more information this time. With a hopeful expression, I inquired about it, eager for a clearer response. Despite her smiling face, she gently shook her head, teasing me with the promise that it would be worth the wait. She hinted at a potential promotion, sparking my curiosity further. As she bid me goodnight and retired to bed, leaving me pondering the possibilities, doubts lingered in my mind. The veil of secrecy surrounding the upcoming event left me unsettled, but all I could do was anticipate what awaited me the next day. Upon returning home from work in the evening, an unusual stillness enveloped the house, with her absence heightening my unease. Aware of her recent late nights, I initially brushed it off. However, as time passed and her whereabouts remained a mystery, worry crept in. Despite multiple attempts to reach her by phone, the silence was deafening. Frustrated, I left a message and anxiously roamed the empty rooms, unable to shake off the growing concern. The clock ticked past midnight, casting shadows in the dimly lit room, when the front door finally creaked open, revealing her disheveled figure stumbling inside. Her disoriented state, accompanied by the pungent odor of alcohol and the mysterious white stains on her clothes, sparked a mix of confusion and alarm within me. Say a word. I just made her way unsteadily to the bedroom and collapsed onto the bed. Watching her like that, I couldn't suppress the anger bubbling inside me. Something was very wrong. While she lay passed out, I grabbed her phone, desperate for answers. What I found shocked me to my core. Text after text revealed that she was organizing swinger parties. Events that, from the photos and messages, looked far more like a seedy operation than anything professional. My stomach churned as I scrolled further. In one group chat, her so-called colleagues referred to her with a vulgar nickname that left no doubt about her involvement. And then I found the video. It wasn't just her hosting these events. She was participating, and not just with one person. The footage showed her with multiple people from her office, laughing and fully engaged in what could only be described as betrayal in its rawest form. I couldn't watch anymore. I slammed the phone down, my hands shaking with fury. Without a word, I went to the closet and I began sorting through her clothes, gathering every dress, pair of shoes, and belonging of hers into trash bags. I was determined that she wouldn't spend another night under my roof. Once I had finished, the bags were stacked by the door, prepared for her to take when she woke up the next morning. As she awoke feeling groggy and confused, she questioned, "What's happening?" In a hoarse voice. I didn't hold back. "What's happening? Are you seriously asking me that? Maybe it's the lies you've been telling me, or perhaps it's the video of you with half your office. Your choice." Her confusion swiftly turned into anger. "You invaded my privacy by going through my phone," she retorted. "That's personal." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Privacy? That's your concern? You're involved in who knows what, and you're making me out to be the problem. She stood there, arms crossed, glaring at me. "You just don't get it. I enjoy it, all right? So stop trying to control me and stay out of my affairs." That was the final straw. "Leave," I declared in a chilling tone. "Take your belongings and go immediately." After she departed, I wasted no time in taking action. Her betrayal felt not only personal but also criminal in nature. Engaging the services of a lawyer, I disclosed all the information I had gathered. Collaboratively, we delved into the puzzle, specifically focusing on the company that had facilitated her unsavory activities. The more we probed, the more disturbing the revelations became. A meticulously orchestrated operation that blurred the boundaries between business and exploitation began to emerge from the records, testimonies, and anonymous tips we unearthed. Our next objective was to identify the key individuals involved. Although it was a challenging task, our perseverance eventually paid off. We managed to uncover the identities of her superiors, event planners, and other supporters. With this critical information in hand, my legal representation and I initiated legal proceedings against the company, accusing them of masking an unlawful operation as legitimate business practices. The evidence we had amassed was compelling, prompting swift action from the authorities. As the case gained momentum, the company's facade crumbled, eliciting the testimonies of former employees who came forward after gathering evidence and experiences. The court swiftly ruled in our favor, leading to the closure of the questionable business and imposing penalties on its leaders. This initial success represented a significant step towards justice. With the company dealt with, my focus shifted back to my personal life. Recognizing that divorce was inevitable, I resolved to ensure that she did not emerge unscathed. The court battle was intense, yet the weight of evidence, encompassing video footage, text messages, and her own admission of complicity in our luxurious lifestyle, overwhelmingly favored me. Ultimately, the judge sided with me in the divorce proceedings, securing my assets and precluding her from any claim. However, the saga did not conclude there. A venomous call from her one morning characterized by accusations and blame left me unfazed. Remained composed, I responded. That was the outcome I intended. Perhaps now they will. Seek out careers that help build and improve lives, rather than causing harm. Despite facing her escalating anger, I remained resolute. After she made threats, spreading malicious lies and trying to damage my reputation, I meticulously documented each incident. Alongside my legal counsel, we issued cease and desist letters and pursued legal action when necessary. With every attack, the truth emerged, ultimately resulting in a restraining order against her. Her attempts to destroy me only reinforced my strength, and I emerged from the ordeal even more determined. While she sought to shatter me, she inadvertently highlighted that I was better off without her negativity in my life after enduring legal battles and enduring her relentless attempts to harm me. I decided it was time to control the narrative. Instead of continuously reacting and defending myself against her lies and manipulations, I chose to take a proactive approach. I possessed compelling evidence, including a revealing video that exposed the depths of her betrayal. Though not an easy decision, I knew it was necessary. I began by sharing the video with a select group of individuals who needed to know the truth, her closest friends and family. This wasn't about seeking revenge, but rather about unveiling the reality of her actions. Her facade of innocence and victimhood had shielded her from accountability for too long. The aftermath was swift and impactful for her. Many of her friends withdrew their support, and family members who had once defended her were left speechless. Word of the video spread rapidly, becoming a whispered topic of conversation amidst a scandal within her social circles. Her invitations to events dwindled, and even her professional connections began to distance themselves. The repercussions of her actions were finally starting to catch up with her. Attempting to shape the narrative in her favor, she accused me of trying to sabotage her life. However, the evidence against her was undeniable, and her reputation suffered as a result. Overwhelmed by judgment and ostracism, she decided to leave the city. Packing up her belongings, she sought a fresh start far from those who now saw her true colors. Word began to circulate through mutual acquaintances that her journey to rebuild her life was met with struggles, but I had moved on and no longer paid attention. The house we once shared served as a constant reminder of the tumult she had brought into my life. Selling it became the only logical choice. The process of letting go was liberating, akin to shedding the final traces of a toxic chapter in my life. And the funds from the sale brought a sense of closure. I relocated to a new neighborhood where her shadow couldn't reach me. It marked a fresh start, both physically and emotionally. In my new residence, I discovered a sense of peace that had eluded me for years. The once suffocating silence now felt soothing. I focused on rebuilding my life, reconnecting with old friends, and taking up neglected hobbies. Each day brought me closer to rediscovering the person I used to be before she entered my life. Many wonder why I took such extreme actions, even going as far as publicizing the video. The answer is simple. Sometimes the truth must be brought into the open, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. Her deeds had repercussions, and it was time for her to confront them. It wasn't about seeking revenge, but about finding closure and moving forward. Looking back on everything that unfolded, I am content with my decisions. Life isn't flawless, but it's once again mine, including the scars she left behind and a living testament to my own strength and resilience. Through my experiences, I have come to cherish the virtues of honesty, loyalty, and self-worth. This, I believe, is the simple and definitive response to the common question: why did I persevere so fiercely? It is because I recognized my own worth and knew I deserved better, and now I have achieved it.